per year, plus some bonus, some sign-in bonus, some moving expenses. So let's say the total package is 120,000 US dollars for one MBA student. Now that's to work 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, 1 year, 50 weeks, 40 hours a week. So you're paying 120,000 US dollars, that's 2,000 hours per year. Now, what American Express and Citibank realize is that why pay that much money for one employee? In India, there are very excellent graduates, the graduates of the IIMs. We have other fine educational institutions. There are several universities I visited in Gandhinagar where they have excellent MBA programs. There are several universities throughout India where they have excellent programs. So what Citibank and American Express realize is that if we were to pay 60,000 US dollars, we could easily get someone who is of the same caliber, if not better, from India with an MBA. Plus, not only is it better caliber, perhaps the work ethic, the discipline is better, the tradition, the values, the culture, the character, the entire package. So these companies were saying we could hire 2 MBAs in India, and with a positive attitude, they would be willing to accept assignments, accept relocation, not have this attitude that I'm an elitist graduate of a top institution. So now America faces a serious question and a serious problem. And the serious question and the problem is, how will American companies compete? How will they survive in the future? So looking at this question about the need for innovation in the United States and in India in management, how will American companies compete globally? How will Indian companies compete globally? And my answer and recommendation is that American companies are not going to be able to compete with lower wages and say, we have the lower wage workers in the entire world. We have the lowest wages in the entire world. China will have lower wages. Similarly, India needs to be careful and not say that we are going to compete on the lowest wages in the entire world. I read an article about some of these nations in Africa. There are some nations like Kenya. And what they were saying is that we have very good English-speaking population. We have very excellent workers. And some of these government officials in Kenya are saying, why put a call center in India, in Bangalore? Why put a help desk or some scheduling call center reservation office in India, in Bangalore? Put that in Kenya. We have the same caliber English speaking, they say, and we will have lower wages compared to the workers in Bangalore. So both the United States and India need to wake up and realize that they cannot compete just on lower wages. Now, even though India has the advantage of a large population, a growing population, that may help in terms of lower wages, that may not be a good long-term strategy. It may not be a good long-term solution. The other way of competing, we mentioned quality. Clearly, the United States is working on improving quality, but the United States does not have a reputation, even today in the year 2009, 2010. If you ask most American buyers, would you buy an American car? Would you buy a European car, German car, Japanese car? Most American consumers, even today, would say we would rather buy a car that's made in Japan, a car made in Korea, a car made in Germany, because there's still the perception that American-made products are not of the same quality. Now, India, fortunately, has a good reputation for quality. But there also, if what you're doing is producing the same item that you did a year ago with good quality, producing the same item that you did 3 years ago, 5 years ago with the same quality, that is not going to be sustainable in the long run. So my belief is that really the key to the growth for management and businesses and firms in both the United States and in India is innovation. There is a need for creativity. There is a need for innovation. Now, the United States has about 350 million population base, and the population is getting older. The only way the quality of life in the United States can continue and to thrive is if the newer generation accepts high wages, high-paying positions. Now, these high wages and high-paying positions have to be in areas of high technology, and they have to be in areas where there's design and creativity, there's design and innovation. So if the United States continues having centers for design, centers for research, centers for innovation, that will provide the growth that the United States needs. So the idea and the model could be the original thinking designs could take place in the United States, the manufacturing could take place in China, some of the tech support, logistics supports could take place in India, and that might be a good long-term solution for American management. Similarly, India needs to be creative and innovative. India and Indian managers, Indian firms are competing in a world-class market. So when we look at companies like Tata Consultancy Services, Tata Consultancy Services is competing against the major consulting firms in the entire world, McKinsey, Booz Allen Hamilton, Price Waterhouse, IBM Consultancy Services. And when you're competing on a global basis, on a world-class level, you have to be innovative. Tata Consultancy Services, other companies in India, they need to be at the forefront of new technology, new ideas, new theories, new management, new principles. And where this is going to come from is the next generation of managers, the individuals who are viewing this program, the students, the MBAs, your faculty members. They're the ones who are going to provide the leadership that India needs for the growth into the future. Now, the United States, unfortunately, sometimes may believe that they have little to worry about in China and India. I remember there was one example when we had President Bush a few years ago, and someone asked him the question, are you worried about China in terms of innovation? Are you worried about India in terms of innovation? And what President Bush said at the time was, no, we're not really that worried because the Chinese, they don't really do that much innovation. They don't do much in the way of creativity. They reverse engineer. They take an existing product and then they just sort of reverse engineer and take the patent. And I think President Bush was wrong with that statement because there's a good example. When you look at a company like IBM, IBM had their laptop, the ThinkPad, and from around the 1980s to around the 1990s when they sold it, they tried to put R&D money into the ThinkPad. They tried to put money into research and development. If you're selling notebooks and laptop computers, you have to be innovative. You have to be creative. You can't just sell the same notebook design, the ThinkPad that you had a year ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago. No one would buy your notebook. So IBM sold the ThinkPad, and they sold it to a Chinese company, Lenovo. Now, President Bush believes that what Lenovo was going to do was just simply reverse engineer and then just keep the same technology. But the reality is that if you think about it, and having visited China, I saw this myself, they're very interested in creativity. They're very interested in entrepreneurship. They're very interested in innovation. You would not have a Chinese company like Lenovo purchasing a high technology product like a notebook computer unless they plan to put money into R&D. And personally visiting the technology parks and with my wife Yatri, we saw the R&D expenditures. We saw the growth. They're heavily investing in universities. They're heavily investing in new programs in engineering, science, and mathematics and business. So the last area also I want to end with is President Bush at the time, this was a State of the Union address about 5 years ago, and he basically said he was not worried about India. And he said the reason he was not worried about India was that India is advanced in science, engineering, math. But President Bush at the time, 5 years ago, in the State of the Union address, January 5 years ago, he said, we are going to counter that in the United States. And his proposal was that there would be more math teachers, more science teachers, more engineering teachers, and more money and effort would be put into science, math, engineering training so that American students would learn science, they would learn mathematics, they would learn engineering. And what President Bush was hoping was that in 30 years, because of this importance placed on math, science, engineering education, there would be a greater influx of new engineers, new scientists, new doctors, new computer scientists, new programmers. My wife is a school teacher, and unfortunately, I think from her perspective, and I know she's going to share some of her ideas in a future presentation, I think science and math and engineering education in the United States is still lacking compared to India. I was very impressed with my visit this year when I went to see various universities. We also went through K through sixth grade primary schools. We went to secondary schools, 7th through 12th grade, 12th standard. I met some of our relatives who are in the 10th standard. And looking at the level of mathematics, the level of science training, the level of engineering problems that they're facing, clearly I think India is way ahead of the United States in terms of the quality of education, the quality of science, the quality of math, the quality of engineering. And I think the credit goes to the teachers. So all of you who are viewing the program, I know many of you are postgraduate, you're in the MBA programs, bachelor's in business. But whenever you do get a chance to see any of your old teachers, your old headmasters, your principals, you should definitely thank them, because even if you have not visited the United States, you have not seen what takes place in American education, clearly the education foundation that you have been provided is world class. And I'm really glad, as a person born in Ahmedabad, born in Gujarat State, I'm really proud to see the progress that has been made in Gujarat State, the progress made in India. And a lot of the future is going to rest in your hands. So those of you who are viewing the program, we need to trust the leaders of our nation. We need to trust our managers, our teachers, and we need to sort of be creative and innovative. If everyone is thinking, how can I do something differently? How can I do something better? How can I improve? The motto for creativity and innovation is good enough is not good enough. If you just simply look at your work environment, your neighborhood, your society, your city, and you say, this is good enough. This is the best that India can do. This is the best that Ahmedabad can do. This is the best that Gujarat State could do. It's not going to be enough, because you're no longer competing against just Ahmedabad or Gujarat State or India. You're really competing in a world-class market, so you need to be creative, you need to be innovative. That's what I'm teaching American MBA students, American managers, and that's what I'd like to also make sure Indian managers are aware, that there is a need for innovation here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. On behalf of Higher Education Commissioner Office, I'm really thankful to you. Dear friends, so here's Dr. P. N. Shukla, and he gives his valuable thoughts on this topic. So thank you very much, all of you. Keep watching Sandhan. Thank you.